Adina never believed in prophecies until the day one changed her life forever. She had always been the kind of woman who made her own decisions. At 30, she was independent, beautiful, and successful. Her petite frame and dark, glowing skin made her stand out, and her wavy black hair framed her face perfectly. But despite everything she had achieved, there was one thing she hadn't figured out yet: love. In a city where relationships seemed to start and end faster than a rainstorm, finding a good man felt like chasing the wind. She had been in love before, but nothing ever lasted. Friends and family had started asking the dreaded question, "When will you settle down?" And honestly, she was starting to ask herself the same thing. That was why she found herself sitting in front of an old prophet in a dimly lit room that smelled of incense and ancient wisdom. If fate had answers, she was ready to listen. The prophet closed his eyes, his voice deep and sure. "Your husband's name will be Ben." Adina frowned. Ben. Yes, Ben. That was all he said. No details, no signs to look for. Just a name. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She walked out of the room feeling a spark of hope. How hard could it be to find one Ben in a city of millions? She had no idea what was coming. At first, Adina thought the prophecy had made things easy for her. She didn't have to guess, analyze, or overthink. She just had to find a Ben. But life, as always, had other plans. In just a few weeks, she met not one, not two, but 5 different men named Ben. And the worst part? She liked all of them. Adina met Ben, the confident businessman, at a corporate event she attended with her best friend. He was the kind of man who commanded attention without trying. Tall, athletic, and always in a sharp designer suit, he spoke with the confidence of someone who was used to winning. When he introduced himself as Ben, Adina's ears perked up. "I work in finance," he said smoothly, flashing a charming smile. "And you?" She told him a bit about herself, and before she knew it, he was offering to take her to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. Adina met Ben, the laid-back chef, at her favorite restaurant. She had gone there to grab a quick meal, but when the food arrived, she was so impressed that she asked to see the chef. That's when he walked out, medium build, dreadlocks pulled into a loose bun, and an easygoing smile that instantly made her feel at home. "You liked the food?" he asked with a playful grin. "I loved it," she admitted. "Good," he said, "because I just decided I'm cooking for you every time you come here." When she asked his name and he said Ben, she nearly choked on her drink. With Ben, the reserved professor, it was different. She met him at a bookstore when they both reached for the same novel at the exact same time. "You read this author too?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "Yeah, she's one of my favorites." A conversation followed, and she found herself intrigued. He was slim, neatly dressed, and carried himself with quiet intelligence. When he told her he was a university professor, it made perfect sense. "I'm Ben, by the way," he added, and Adina's heart skipped a beat. Adina met Ben the adventurer in the most unexpected way, stuck in an elevator. She had been panicking when the doors suddenly jammed, but the tall, muscular man beside her just laughed. "Relax," he said. "This is nothing compared to the time I got stranded on a mountain for 2 days." She looked at him like he was crazy, but as they talked, she found herself laughing too. By the time the elevator finally moved again, she had learned that he ran a travel agency and had been to almost every country she could think of. When he casually said, "Oh, I'm Ben, by the way," she almost started laughing again. Her meeting with Ben, the artistic soul, felt straight out of a movie. She had been walking through a park one evening when she heard someone singing. The voice was so beautiful that she stopped to listen. She followed the sound and found a man with shoulder-length curly hair sitting on a bench with his guitar. His fingers moved effortlessly across the strings, and the way he sang made her feel something deep in her chest. When he finished, she couldn't help but clap. He turned and smiled. "Didn't know I had an audience," he said. "You do now," she replied. They talked for a while, and when he finally said, "I'm Ben," she almost couldn't believe it. Adina had been excited at first. Now she was overwhelmed. 5 amazing men, all named Ben. Determined to get more answers, she rushed back to the prophet's house the next morning. She knocked, eager to hear the final clue that would clear up her dilemma. A frail woman opened the door, her face heavy with sadness. "The prophet passed away yesterday." Adina's breath caught. "What?" "He was old," the woman said simply. "His time had come." Adina stood there, frozen. She had come for answers, but now there was no one left to give them. "So, what do I do?" she asked, almost to herself. The woman sighed. "You decide." Adina walked away feeling both lost and determined. If there was no more divine guidance, she would have to trust herself. One of these 5 men was her future husband. She just had to figure out which one. Adina had always been someone who took control of her life, but this time she wasn't sure where to start. She had met 5 incredible men, each with their unique charm, and she couldn't deny that she was drawn to all of them. They were all so different, yet all felt like they could be the one. But how could she choose between them when they all shared the same name? The first man she called was Ben, the confident businessman. She had enjoyed their dinner together, but she wasn't sure if his confidence was enough to win her heart. He seemed like the kind of man who would always be in control. But was that what she needed? They met at a high-end coffee shop the following weekend. He was as sharp and charming as ever, dressed in a dark suit that made him look like he had just stepped out of a magazine. "So, tell me," he asked as they sipped their drinks. "What do you see in the future? What do you want out of life?" Adina smiled, impressed by his question. She had always prided herself on knowing exactly what she wanted. But for some reason, in Ben the confident businessman's presence, she found herself unsure. "I'm not sure," she admitted, "but I want someone who can stand by me, someone I can trust, and someone who'll always be there, no matter what." Ben. The businessman leaned in slightly, his gaze intense. "I can be that person for you, Adina. I'm not the kind of man to let things fall apart." His words were confident, even a bit reassuring. But something about him made Adina hesitate. Was he too perfect? Was there room for her in his world, or was she just a trophy on his arm? The next day, Adina went to meet Ben, the chef. She had enjoyed the warmth of his smile and the way he had made her feel at ease the first time they met. He didn't seem to carry the same pressure as Ben A. He was more relaxed, more spontaneous. When she arrived at the restaurant, she found him behind the kitchen counter, busy cooking with a team of staff around him. As soon as he saw her, he stepped away from the counter, wiping his hands on a towel. "Hey there," he greeted with his usual grin. "How's your day going?" "Better now," she said, smiling back. They spent the next few hours talking as he prepared a special dish just for her. His humor was infectious, and by the time the meal was over, she felt as though she had known him for years. Ben the chef made everything feel easy. But as she sat back, enjoying the food, she began to wonder if easy was enough. She liked him, no doubt about it, but was he the one who could give her the stability she needed? The next week, Adina found herself in the university library, meeting Ben, the reserved professor. He was unlike the others, quiet, reserved, and more interested in discussing books than making small talk. When she arrived, he was already waiting by the coffee counter, a book in hand. "Adina," he greeted with a soft smile, his glasses slipping slightly down his nose. "Glad you could make it." They sat down, and the conversation quickly turned to literature. Adina was fascinated by how much he knew about the world, how articulate he was. There was a gentleness to Ben the professor, a calm that made her feel safe. But something was missing. As much as she admired his intelligence, she couldn't ignore the feeling that their connection might be more intellectual than emotional. She needed someone who could connect with her heart, not just her mind. With Ben the adventurer, it was different. Their meeting had been random, but somehow it felt like fate. He had such a zest for life, and his stories about traveling the world were both exciting and thrilling. She met him at his office, a small but cozy space filled with maps, photos of exotic places, and souvenirs from his many trips. "You like adventure?" he asked, his voice full of excitement. "Because if you do, I can promise you that life with me will never be boring." Adina smiled, taken by his energy. "I've never really thought about it that way, but I think I'm ready for a little excitement." They spent the next few hours talking about his travels, sharing stories and laughing. His adventurous spirit was contagious. But as much as she enjoyed his company, Adina couldn't ignore the nagging question. Was she ready to follow him on all his adventures, or did she need a more grounded life? Finally, there was Ben, the artistic soul, the musician. Every time they met, she felt like she had stepped into another world. He was different from all the other Bens, creative, free-spirited, and so full of life. Adina met him at a small cafe where he often played acoustic sets. The moment she walked in, he was on stage, guitar in hand, his voice flowing like a river. She stood in the back, watching him sing with such passion. When the set ended, he spotted her from across the room. "Adina!" he called out, flashing a grin. "Did you like the show?" "It was amazing," she said, stepping forward. "You have such a beautiful voice." They spent the evening talking about music, art, and their shared love for creativity. Ben the musician was a poet, a dreamer, and every moment with him felt like an adventure in itself. But as she walked home that night, Adina couldn't help but wonder if his free-spirited lifestyle would ever mesh with her own more structured world. The days turned into weeks, and Adina felt no closer to her answer. Each Ben had a unique charm that made her question if one of them was the one meant for her. She spent time with each of them, enjoyed their company, and learned about their lives, but none of them had yet convinced her completely. She had a decision to make, but who would she choose? Adina sat in her favorite cafe, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly as she tried to sort through her thoughts. It had been weeks since she first met all 5 Bens, and she still couldn't decide. Each man had something special, something that made her heart flutter, but there was always something that held her back from fully committing to any of them. The truth was, Adina had always prided herself on knowing exactly what she wanted. She had a clear vision of her life and her future, but right now, she felt lost. The more time she spent with each of the Bens, the more confusing it became. She thought about Ben, the businessman, with his confidence and success. He made her feel safe in a way, like life with him would be organized, predictable. But was she willing to sacrifice her own independence for that stability? Would she always be a part of his well-ordered world, or would she be just a supporting character in his story? Then there was Ben the chef. His laid-back attitude had been refreshing, and the way he made her laugh made her feel at ease. She could see herself spending a lot of lazy Sundays with him, just enjoying each other's company. But deep down, Adina wasn't sure if he could provide the kind of life she was looking for. Could he offer the kind of commitment and stability she needed, or was he simply too carefree? Ben the professor was the thinker, the intellectual. She loved their deep conversations, the way he always challenged her to think differently. But sometimes, Adina felt like she was more his student than his partner. She admired him, but was admiration enough for a life partner? Was there more to love than just being impressed by each other's minds? Then there was Ben, the adventurer. He had shown her a world full of possibilities, places she could only dream of visiting. She loved how alive he made her feel, how he encouraged her to push beyond her comfort zone. But could she really leave everything behind to chase adventures with him? Could she settle into a life that was constantly on the move, never stable? And lastly, there was Ben the musician. There was something magical about him, something that made her feel like she was part of something bigger. Every time they were together, Adina felt like she was seeing the world through a new lens, one filled with beauty, creativity, and expression. But could she live in a world where stability wasn't guaranteed? Could she let go of her own dreams for his? As she sat there, her mind swirling, she knew she had to make a choice. But how could she choose between 5 incredible men, each with so much to offer? Adina decided to take a step back and focus on what really mattered. She could spend her whole life analyzing, weighing the pros and cons of each man, but in the end, the heart had to guide her. That evening, she found herself at the park again, where she had first met Ben the musician. She had been thinking about him a lot lately. His music had always made her feel something deep inside, something that none of the other Bens had sparked. As she walked through the park, she heard the faint sound of guitar strings. She followed the sound and found Ben the musician sitting on a bench, his guitar resting in his lap. He was playing a soft melody, his eyes closed as he lost himself in the music. When he opened his eyes and saw her, he smiled. "Adina," he said, his voice soft but warm. "I was hoping you'd show up." Adina sat down beside him, feeling the weight of the decision she had been avoiding for so long. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice shaky. "I've been trying to figure out which one of you is the right Ben. But I realized that maybe I've been going about it all wrong." Ben the musician put his guitar down, looking at her with curiosity. "I've spent so much time focusing on the things that could go wrong, the things that might hold me back. But what I really need is someone who makes me feel alive, who makes me feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She paused, her heart beating faster as she spoke the words that had been in her heart for so long. "And that someone is you." Ben the musician's eyes softened, and he reached out to take her hand. "I've been hoping you'd realize that." Adina smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She had finally found the right Ben, not because of his name, but because of the way he made her feel. The days that followed were filled with laughter, music, and the kind of love Adina had always dreamed of. She had finally found her partner, someone who didn't just fit into her life, but someone who made her life feel fuller, richer, and more exciting. Adina and Ben the musician spent their days exploring the city, attending art galleries, and making music together. It wasn't always easy, but it was always real. They shared their dreams and their fears, their hopes and their doubts, and in the end, they knew that they were meant to be together. In time, Adina realized that love wasn't about finding the perfect person. It was about finding someone who saw you for who you truly were, and someone who loved you through all the imperfections.
One day, as they stood in the park where they first met, Ben the musician turned to her with a smile. "So, I guess this is it. You've made your choice."
Adina smiled, her heart full. "Yes, I have." And with that, they began their journey together, 2 souls destined to be united, ready to face whatever the future had in store. They got married a few months later, in a simple ceremony surrounded by family and friends. It was perfect, just like their love. Adina and Ben, the artistic soul, prove that love is not about finding the perfect person, but about finding someone who makes you feel seen and understood, and also choosing to build a life together based on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Sometimes, love comes when you stop overthinking and listen to your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do for more emotional, captivating, and inspiring stories just like this one. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next one.